the NFL Print Factory Show, Showdown edition for Thursday Night Football. Obviously, bringing it to you here. I'm JSU. We got Big T, a.k.a. Mr. Taysom. But before we get to Big T, we got someone even bigger than Big T on here, because I swear he beat him in that race, by the way. But Mr. Whistles Go Woo is with us today. Whistles, nice to meet you, man. Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for reaching out. Super excited to chat a bit about this showdown game. I think this will be a fun one to watch and unravel.
Yeah, I'm pumped for this game. I've been waiting all week for this game. This has been, I can't wait for this showdown tonight. I've been having some good success with the showdown slates the last few weeks. And Tony, it only feels right that doing a show with my boy Big T, me and you can get some Taysom love and ship something tonight, man. Somebody on this show needs to ship. And maybe it's Whistles. Maybe Whistles always ships, though, now. So
Whistles always ships. Can
it be me or you? I don't know. Maybe Whistles. If Whistles ships, I'll be happy for him, too. But he always ships. Big T, we need a ship here on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be on with you two today. What I consider maybe the best single entry to 3 entry max guy, JSU, one of the best in the industries at that, and definitely one of the best 150ers in Whistles. I got to know him as we were filming in Miami and stuff. Loved hanging out with them and wanted to do a show with them. Happy to have him on today. And it's nice, too, because me and JSU's even more of a field player than me. We're field players, though, and Whistles is not a field player as much. He's got his own system built, numbers, and I think it's going to be, I mean, even talking to him in Miami, it's a nice mix with what me and JSU do. So you get two sides of the equation. I think it's a perfect fit for a showdown slate because Whistles plays every showdown, even the smaller ones, because it's what he's good at. So I think it's a perfect fit. We're going to have some fun talking about this Thursday night game.
Yeah, I've always loved showdowns. Kind of just got, that was one of my biggest successes in the beginning, actually, when I first got it, some decent traction. Love showdowns. I think they're really fun. You can easily make sure you're not missing anybody, at least in consideration, right? You don't have to watch 22 teams or something like that. So I think it's a fun one to check out.
Talk about a little bit what you do, though, because a lot of people know you, but not being on Twitter, not everyone knows. You talk about how you run like simulations of the stuff. I mean, you don't have to go into the full process, obviously. Just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So my by trade, I'm a professor, and I build mathematical models for stuff. That's just what I do, right? And I've always loved sports, always loved dabbling in gambling on sports, and even like poker a bit. And then got into DFS because it was kind of a cool analytical game. I don't think. There's plenty of room for field players. There's plenty of room for analytics players. And I think it's a lot of fun to kind of bridge the two. And yeah, love doing math models, love trying to apply simulations to decision-making. And, DFS is just a very good game, fun thing to play. And it's really fun to meet all the guys too, right? I'm starting to go do all these shows with everybody. Everybody's super cool. I have fun at all the events, and yeah, just excited to keep it going.
Yeah, Whistles, I was kind of wondering, like, before your big hits where you started to so your big hit was last year's world championship in NFL, correct? If I'm wrong,
correct. Not the big hit, one of his big hits. I mean, this guy freaking already shipped like 3 or 4ur more big ones.
Well, that's when I remember him like being on this
in the kitchen, all sauced up, saying "woo woo woo."
Yeah. So before that, were you like playing really heavy into DFS for a while before that, or did you like start more after some of those big hits like that world championship? Just wondering.
Right. So I think the year before that, I had started to get a little bit serious about it, had some success in baseball, got the bankroll up, but basically didn't do proper bankroll management, lost most of it. All right. Then got a little bit more serious about it, trying to actually see what I should do. Where's my edge? Where am I kind of losing on? What could I do better? And then, leading into when COVID hit, right, I had started gaining some trajectory, got into the esports stuff, won a bit there. And then, it just kind of climbed from there, right? Really started figuring it out. Once the sports came back, really all of them were like just hitting for me. I think what happened was I had hit a 200 on I think it was a late only football slate last year at some point, and that really bumped up the bankroll. And then I was able to like play, wild on all different types of contests, and then of course led into the championship qualifiers, and then ultimately the win.
Interesting how you've talked about how you play all these showdown slates and how you're like, yeah, you don't have to focus on like 22 teams, and then one of your bigger hits was a later slate with less. Is that something you focused on like early in your career? Because you're a mathematical guy, odds, all that stuff. Did you feel like it was an easier game to attack those shorter type slates, like the showdowns where there's less players, like the late slates, the early slates where there's less games? Did you start having success with those before the bigger success, obviously?
There's no doubt. And I know my return is better on smaller slates. There's no question. And I think, it's amazing because you would think that the analytics would give you an edge on a larger slate, right? Just so you could sort through all the guys and all that stuff. But imagine me as a math guy and also a sports guy, but not as much as you all are, obviously, looking at 22 games of players. You're talking about 60 different receivers you might pick from. It's a lot of people, right? And you can have the best math model in the world, but if you can't zone in on some type of core, it's going to be really hard to kind of lift up your value, right? So I actually do find that the showdowns and the smaller slate ones, they are, for me, a bit easier to handle, right? I mean, I can more readily get a real feeling about what the people might do, how they might pick. But when I look at a big slate, it's really hard for me to tell what ownership might look like.
The funny thing about you saying that is I think that's our strength too. Like, we like the shorter slates. We hate so it's weird because we're field players, you're number players, but I hate the 14, the massive slates where there's too many options. There's too many good plays. Like the last 2 weeks in NFL, you got one guy that goes off. If you don't have that dude, you're not going to win that day. I mean, it happens a little in showdown too, but you can zone in more. You can take stands. You can just go different directions, which I think we all like the shorter slates a lot more.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't look at myself as a math guy, and I don't think Big T does either. But at the same time, I kind of have the same thought process in my head of why I feel like shorter slates like you do, where you look at it from that perspective. I see the same thing where it's like, I feel like it's more narrowed down where I have a better odd of shipping with a tighter core, like you're saying, where I have a better chance of that happening with less players than I do with so many players where the randomness is higher.
Yeah, but maybe that's it, right? Maybe for the casual player, if they can come up with, a good pick, right? And there's so many different options for decent picks on a large slate, then they can come up with a very good strategy that can actually beat whoever they're playing against, right? Because they have more of an opportunity, right? You pick a mid-tier quarterback and a mid-tier receiver on his team to stack around. You can do that on a larger slate and win. There's no question, right? And so, who knows? You know what I mean? I really don't. I don't know exactly why, but yeah, I find that. Of course, I think you can lose more as far as on like a small slate, because if you miss, you're kind of out, right? But I still think
you're not going to get anything back.
It's impossible. Like you said, a shorter, right? If you never have a captain with the one guy, you could basically just wrap it up. But still, yeah, I think it's interesting though. It's interesting. I obviously all of the games I love playing, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, we're bringing it to the showdown slate here. Obviously, Dallas Cowboys going up against Taysom Hill and the New Orleans Saints. Before we get into the actual game, though, guys, I just want to remind you, hit that like button, that thumbs up. You like our boy Whistles, our special guest here, hit the like button for him. Hit the like button for Taysom Hill, a.k.a. Big T. Maybe for JSU if you want, but hit that button, that thumbs up. Subscribe. Hit the red subscribe button at the bottom right-hand corner. Helps us continue to roll these free shows out, get more guests on, which we want to keep doing for you guys. So hit that button, that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and we'll keep rolling these shows out for you guys. So I just wanted to hit on that. Also, if you're not a Run Pure Sports member, you want to become a member at Run Pure Sports, RPS Heater 25 will get you 25% off your first month's payment, as long as it's a monthly subscription. So check that out over at Run Pure Sports. All right, boys, let's dive into this. Let's dive into this showdown talk. I want to get into specifically some strategies, but before we do that, just like a quick outlook, Tony, I want to get your perspective on the game, just from a betting side, real quick. What do you think of this game? How do you think the Saints play here, coming off a really rough beating by the Bills, where they just handled them?
Yeah, I mean, on Thanksgiving they played. I thought Taysom was going to get big workload last week. He didn't see the field, obviously, because of the plantar fascia or whatever. I thought he was healthier. He didn't play. Simeon sucks. Like, I just don't like his numbers were decent, but I didn't think he could. I watched him in Denver for however long he was there. He was terrible. So finally, Taysom must be a little healthier this week, and he just gives a different element to the offense where he can run, he can just ugly it up a little bit, and they don't have any weapons. I mean, the Saints don't have good players, so Taysom just fits better with this offense. So I like it. And the nice part about tonight's game, and I can't wait to hear what Whistles says kind of about the numbers side, but like everyone's going to like Dallas, all these weapons, all these big names, Dak and Zeke and Coop and CD and everybody. There's just so many ways you can go. Yet they're only favored by 6. And just people aren't going to like this New Orleans side. So this is a great showdown slate because if we can find a way to just get some different paths, it could be a really good slate to get to the top of the leaderboards.
Yeah, Whistles, what do you think of this game here? Just real quick from a betting side, do you like the Saints or the Cowboys? Which side would you lean?
Yeah, I mean, on a 6 point, I'd probably go Dallas here, but yeah. I do think that what's gonna be very interesting. I want to see how deep DFS players go on the wide receivers for the Saints, because I have no idea who is going to be targeted the most. And I don't think anybody could possibly understand who's going to be targeted. Now, of course, it's the legs that we might consider also for Taysom, right? But also, I mean, do you stop at Callaway, Harrison Smith, or do you go a little bit lower to Humphrey or even Kenny Stills? I don't know. So I'm going to be very interested to see how deep the field goes on the wide receivers. So we'll see.
That's a big talking point too for this showdown, because I do think Whistles is on to something where if you can pick the wide receiver, because I think one of these wide receivers hits, maybe it's 2, but it's probably more likely it's 1. And if you can pick the right one, man, you got a good shot in this showdown slate. And I'm going to give you my favorite guy. We'll talk about him in this show. I bet you Big T is going to be on the same guy because there's a connection between him and Taysom Hill, I think anyways, where we've seen it before. And I also think he's their best, most explosive player on the team anyways. So, but there's another young guy that I think is starting to trend up with the coaching staff where he's starting to get some run too. So I want you guys' thoughts on him, but we'll give you that in a second. Tony, let's start at the top here with the quarterbacks. You've been on a quarterback kick where you've been telling me for weeks, just play these guys in the captain. They're lower owned than they should be. Is this another slate where the quarterbacks, especially like a Taysom, people hate Taysom? There's a lot of Taysom haters in the building right now, and a lot of them probably watching, and he's expensive. So what do you think Taysom Hill's ownership is going to be in the captain tonight?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just overall, the quarterbacks and the captain, again, Whistles is way better at this than me. He probably back tested everything, but these quarterbacks keep coming in lower owned than I think they should be. Tons of 10% captains, 12% captains, 9% captains. And I think the game is just adjusted a little bit in these showdowns where everyone knows the receivers have the highest upside, highest chance of shipping these showdowns. But as the ownership starts to swing that way too, I think we can get decent edges by captaining these quarterbacks. And tonight it is a really good slate for it. I mean, Dak, obviously, if you want to go passing heavy, tons of weapons he can go to, which gives us just great paths to victory. Or you can go with the running game with Dallas too. But you got clear paths with Dallas, which makes it nice for showdown. Go heavy one way or the other, see how it works out. But yeah, the Saints side, you guys kind of talked about it. It's just a matter of who you're going to play with Taysom. First of all, on FanDuel, too, they mispriced me $7K. Whistles in Miami telling me, oh, I don't mess around with FanDuel. We talked about this before the show. Then JSU, like a week ago, I see his damn name at the top of the leaderboard. He can't even let us win FanDuel. He's already owned DK, and now he's going to freaking come and start shipping FanDuel on us?
You better watch out. I think he saw you ship some Yahoo tournaments. He's about to get on Yahoo too. He's stealing our thunder on Yahoo, man.
I started getting a lot of ads for Super Draft too. It's too much. At some point, you got to cut the cord. You know what I mean?
But
there's a point where like you play way too many sites when you start to get into like all these other ones like DK, FanDuel. Okay, you want to throw in one of the other smaller sites, but like when you start talking about more than 3 sites, it's like, okay, I need no more. It's too much. For sure.
It's even harder when you get news and stuff like the sports where you get news. NFL is slightly easier just because news doesn't hit as like it'd be nearly impossible for me to play NBA on 3 or 4 different. If that late news hits, I don't care who you are. It's hard to get that stuff updated where you need it.
You have no chance if you're doing more than 2 sites, I think.
Yeah. Outside of just like mass swapping, which obviously isn't going to be very good for you long term.
Right.
But yeah, back to Taysom though. Yeah, I agree completely with you guys. It's just a matter of who are we going to put with him. And that's the hard part. I mean, you look, they don't have many weapons on this New Orleans team. So I just from the past, I've always been known as kind of the Taysom guy because I was playing him before anybody when he was 2% on these showdowns and not as a quarterback. He always had a connection with kind of the role players. I remember tons of slates where the studs like Kamara, Michael Thomas, he just wouldn't get them as involved. And some of the lesser guys he would pepper. And one of them was always Deontay Harris, who I'm sure JSU was talking about. Tons of 50-yard post patterns to him, tons of connections. And I think he's the best explosive receiver too. So he would be my guy, but it's truly up in the air, which makes Showdown good too, though. This is why we love Showdown. You don't have to pick one direction. You can kind of cycle these guys through there and pick a path and go with it. But I do love the Taysom captain. And on FanDuel, that's what I was saying before I started getting on whistles. He's only $7K, which is a misprice, obviously. But it's also going to get him way lower owned he's going to be very low owned in the MVP on FanDuel, which I think is a decent play, especially at a super, super low ownership. If you think New Orleans can win this game.
Yeah. First of all, Deontay was the guy I was talking about. And just from a football standpoint, like if you think about Taysom Hill and how teams are going to defend him, right? He's a running quarterback, run first. He's not a check down guy either. That's why we saw Kamara's stats drop when Taysom was playing last year. He doesn't check down as much to the running back. He wants to run. So if his first and second reads aren't there, he's tucking and running. It's not like, maybe I should, no. He is tucking the ball and he is going because that's like in his brain. It's already programmed. That's what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything else. And football, like defenses are going to play more of that run game. They're going to play more of the shorter passing. What does that do? Well, they're going to start to play a little bit more one-on-one coverage. They're going to start to say, okay, you want to take a shot over the top? Go do it. They're going to dare him to do it. And what does that do? That gives opportunity to guys like Deontay Harris who have the speed to get by someone. And if Taysom can connect, all it takes, Tony, we talk about all the time, those guys where all it takes is one, man. And Deontay, all it takes is one shot and he's there. And I love him here because I know teams, this is how teams are going to defend him. They're going to say, we're going to try and stop the run. If we have to bring safeties down, we'll bring safeties down. We're going to load the box and we're just going to force him into throws. And then also, if you think Dallas gets up in this game, which if you're betting Dallas, you obviously do, then you think they're going to be playing from behind. So all that leads to, I think there's going to be opportunity for Taysom in one-on-one coverage to make big plays. The question is, do you think he can make them? If he does, though, some guy is going to pay off. And that's where I lead to Deontay Harris. I also think Humphreys, whose snap count has gone up the last few weeks. It went from 25 week 11 to about 40, I think 2 or 47, but 47% last week. It's clearly going up and he looks to be getting better. He would be the other guy I'd have a tiny bit of interest in just because he's looked good. But Whistles, what do you think of the Saints side, specifically, obviously, Taysom Hill and then the receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Diggs, right? The defensive back, right? He's the guy to be scared about, right? And you have to think who he's going to be matched up against, right? And it's not going to be Harris. So I think that is probably the right play. But I'll throw another bone out to you. I love the play of Taysom as captain, but put Dallas's defense also there. And I know that seems kind of crazy, and most people would think, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But can't you imagine one running touchdown, one throwing touchdown, but then a pick six for Dallas tonight? I can imagine that. And I think that's such a power play. And I don't think, I mean, this is a little bit of a deeper league, right? Don't do this for a single entry necessarily, but I love that play. And I think, you may see more of that than you typically do because he's a running quarterback and like you don't necessarily have to stack him as much in a showdown. So we'll see.
The funny thing is, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, you're taking the aggressiveness. You know that Dallas is an aggressive D who likes to jump and make turnovers, right? We already know Dallas is a turnover defense. They pride themselves. That's how they win. Their defense gets turnovers. They've done it all year. You're pretty much saying, I think Taysom can score a running touchdown. Maybe he throws one, and then he could just throw one pick six, and man, Dallas's D could be in the winner. That makes a ton of sense.
I love that lineup. And I think, I think that's great. And, their defense against wide receiver ones, perhaps unsurprisingly, pretty good. Wide receiver 2 and 3, not as good, right? So I absolutely agree with you all, right? Sticking with Harris is probably a great. So, I mean, and, you'd have gap in the salary if you have Dallas defense and you play him as quarterback. So, yeah, as captain. So we'll see. I think that's a good play for tonight.
I love it too because I think the game's going to be lower scoring too. Well, obviously, because if you think the Saints are going to win, I think you have to like a lower scoring game. So if you have Taysom and the captain or something, you naturally should think it's going to be lower scoring, which also helps Dallas D, where one pick six puts them in the winner, basically. I mean, anytime a D gets a pick six, I mean, what is that, 8 points right out of the gate? Or not by out of the gate, I mean, whenever it comes. But still, I love that. We always talk about playing the D against the quarterback. It's shipped like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times this year, it feels like, where the D against it, because all it takes is one play. And I think it could be a special teams even. Maybe they get a punt to the house. Or
I just think this is a perfect game for that type of play. And even if you're putting what we'll call it in as a flex, right? The quarterback, that's fine. Taysom, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Also, don't be scared about putting the defense in the slate there too, right? Sometimes you don't want to do that. In this particular slate, I got no problem with anybody playing that.
Yeah, a little less risk averse, right? If you just put Taysom in the flex, but you put the defense in there as opposed to the captain spot. Right. But I think either way, it's a really good strategy in Millie Maker formats, large field GPPs where maybe sharp guys will be on it. Like Whistles, obviously that was already a thought process in your head where that was a possibility. But most people will go against that, right? They won't do it as much. And that's where you can maybe get an edge on the field. And that's what you want in showdowns. You want to build unique style lineups, right? That's the goal, really, right, Whistles? I mean, me and Tony talk about it all the time, but it seems like just from listening to some of your thought process, that's how you build as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to use some logic in the construction, okay? But you don't be scared to mix and match it up. I mean, putting more than one entry, that's what helps you really kind of diversify the things you can do. And the quarterback captain thing is so interesting because you see super high ownership for quarterbacks, but not in the captain slot. I think you're absolutely right, Big T. And I think you won't see Dak so much in the captain tonight. I don't think so. I think it's going to be too expensive and stuff. And also he's got so many weapons. You might as well put one of his receivers in there, maybe. But the Taysom captain play is maybe. I think he'll be in captain more than. I think Dak will be higher owned, I think. But I do think that Taysom will be in the captain slot more than Dak.
One comment too about Taysom too, like he smothers games where he has games where he doesn't get anyone involved. I could also see a team where he's captain with no other Saints and you go all Dallas guys with him. Those are like weird builds that people don't do much, but all it takes is him to get 3 touchdowns, 2 of them running, and not really do much else, and Dallas to win the game, and you're minting money. I mean, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to choose, right, JSU? Then you don't have to choose which guy to put with them.
Yeah, for sure. You said it though, Taysom. So the thing with Taysom that works with this Saints team is, and they talked about it on the broadcast last week. If you watched the Bills game, they talked about the team, what they want to do. I think it was Drew Brees talking about it. They want to get in 3rd and shorts and convert in 3rd and shorts. And what they want is long sustaining drives where they kill a lot of the game. They're trying to get those long where the quarterback on the other team sitting on the sideline, and they bleed out the game. They run the clock, and really it helps their offense where their offense doesn't have to, score when in the end a ton of points, but they can keep it close that way, and not let the other team's offense get too ahead of theirs. That's how they win games with Taysom. Trevor Siemian, all he did was in the fourth quarter against like prevent defenses, and when the game was done for, he would throw for yardage and touchdowns against teams that the games were over with all of his stats. Pretty much that's what he was doing. Taysom Hill, I think, has a better chance at least to do what Sean Payton wants, which is get them in third and manageable and convert, whether it's him with his legs or the running game. The running game is just a little more dangerous when you have the Taysom Hill. Does he keep it? Does he not? It just gives the defense another thing they have to focus on. With Trevor Siemian, they didn't have to focus on that, and they didn't really respect his deep ball ability, so they could play the shorter passing game more, which made it harder for Siemian in the end to be effective until the games were out of hand. So that's where I think Taysom can give them an edge. But I love the Dak captain idea, because if you think the game plays like slower into the Saints' hands, you're probably right. People might think that way and avoid Dak and the captain, which could keep his ownership.
He's expensive
down.
too. Like Whistle said, it's tough. That's why people aren't playing it as much. With these high-priced captains, it's hard to do it. I mean, it's hard to put him with two, because you want two pass catchers if you're playing Dak and the captain, and those guys are expensive. So all of a sudden, you plug him in with two good pass catchers, you're up against it price-wise. I mean, it's a tough build for sure, which is why it ends up lower owned.
Yeah, you're going to have to put Schultz in there probably.
He's not even that cheap, though, is he?
I know. I don't think so, but that's going to have to be one of your receivers, I think, pretty much.
Like, he's 7,600 tonight.
I know.
He's more than Gallup.
It's
crazy.
We'll see.
I couldn't even imagine. We'll get to Dallas. I couldn't even imagine paying that for.
I think you have to.
That's what I think Whistles does really good for the people that I've been watching him, taking notes because he's one of the best. He gets a little bit of everybody. You don't ever like hard fade anyone, do you?
No, I mean, I'm getting a little bit more like that in the larger slates. I mean, sorry, in the larger competitions where it's not just 3% ownership for me, right? Where I'm, I don't know.
So if you have a tiny, like say you run your final numbers and you got 3% Dalton Schultz, would you just ever just cut it out of there and just completely fade him?
Yeah, I what a good question. I was just talking to one of my buddies today about that, right? And I think I'm going to move towards that direction because, if you've got someone 1% and they hit you, you probably are not going to win anyway, right? So it is. I am modifying to make myself a little bit more controlled. And I've looked at the top players and seen their picks, right? I don't know, you, me, Chipotle Addict, Papa Gates, Osimo, all these guys, okay? And I believe that me and Osimo are the most spread players there are out there.
You guys are definitely spread for sure, and you're good at it. It's a compliment.
Thanks, and I think that's fine. I don't know. It's really hard to say what the better play is. It really is. Because, I've had some success where, I've got a guy 1% owned and he went off and I have him. And it's just great. I mean, if you had Fournette last week, for example,
I would take 1% over my 0. I'll tell you that right now.
It's alive, you know what I mean? And so I don't, but of course that's Fournette. He's a more well-known player, right? I mean, if you go a little bit lower down the field, maybe you don't, maybe you don't take the 1-2% guys, but I don't have the answer yet for that.
There you go, guys. If you like all this knowledge being dropped right now, don't forget, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Got more for you. Let's bring it to the Dallas side, though. You guys, we're starting to talk on the pass catchers for Dallas and their price tags. Well, they got their 2 stars back most likely tonight. I know Cooper's questionable. It feels like he's going to come back tonight. We'll see officially. CD Lamb is going to be back for sure. Michael Gallup's in there now. They did lose Cedric Wilson, but with their 3 stars back, I think that's not as big of a deal, but maybe that helps a Noah Brown who's seen some snaps. I think they more like him as a run blocker personally, but he can still catch the ball. He's $600. What are we doing with this Dallas side where it seems like a lot of these guys are expensive? Whistles, I'll go to you first.
Guys on the mute.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a tricky, it's tricky there, right? I mean, I love Lamb. Obviously, I think he's the guy that can blow up the most, but you got to, again, think about the defensive backs on the other side. You've got two really good defensive backs in this game, one on each side of the ball, right? So you've got to think about how that might affect the number one receiver, right? And then, yeah, Cooper's going to be back, but, you never know what's happening there when someone takes a week off or something like this. And yeah, I don't imagine going much lower than the top three receivers in Dallas tonight. I don't think Noah Brown's a horrible play, but I don't see him doing enough to make it work. And there's nobody else, right? So yeah, I would, as far as what I think the field will do, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I don't have a good feel yet. I guess for the salary wise, Gallup is the play, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, Tony. So, obviously this is tough with some of these price tags, and you got two guys coming off of not playing, obviously with the illness stuff. So you don't know 100% what you're going to get. You feel like if they play though, they're probably good to go, right? So what are you feeling with these receivers? Is there one that you just think is better than the rest, or do you feel they're all kind of similar?
Yeah, it's going to kind of be Gallup for me just because of price. I mean, you look at these prices, the more I look at Dallas, the more I think Dak just has to be pretty low owned in the captain, like Whistle said. It's just these prices are high. And I also agree, I just eliminated these guys from the pool. Noah Brown, Malik Turner, obviously Cedric Wilson's out. I'm not going to play these guys. The only way I can see them really doing anything is just an injury or something. If one of these guys ahead of them goes out injured, which happens, but I'm not going to bank on that. I'll get my value more from the New Orleans side, at least in my opinion. But for me, you got to decide between CD or Coop, and I'm always a CD guy, so I'll probably choose CD over. I mean, I'm going to play both of them for sure, but if I had to pick like in single entry or something, I like CD more. I like that he's more expensive too, so maybe he goes a little lower owned than Coop just because it's tough to play Dak or CD and the captain with the other guy. It gets a little thin. I mean, in the tight end, like we already talked about, but Dalton Schultz at 7,600. I think so. I do hard fade people. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hard fade Dalton Schultz. I mean, 7,600 for that guy is extremely, extremely high, especially when I can play a kicker for 4K or right in that 4K half price. Like I will take a kicker for sure, half price over Dalton Schultz. And I just can't do it. The only build I would play Dalton Schultz is a Dak captain. And I don't know how much of that I'll have, but that would be the only build I would play him.
I think the Dak Cooper Schultz is the only legitimate Dak.
How much salary do you even have with those three?
You don't have much, but you have something. Okay. Yeah. And so I think you could actually play that and put together a reasonable lineup. But I will tell you guys something very interesting. So I ran my model before the show so I could actually, say something intelligent here. And I will tell you guys that at least according to what I have, in the captain spot, I put Lamb and Cooper exactly equal tonight, like exactly equal in the captain spot. Yeah. But for the flex spot, I think people will pick Lamb a bit more. So I really think that you're going to get really interesting equal ownership at the top for these guys. And I think that's fair priced, right? I think that's right? They have the price right for the quality of the players. But I think that you'll to get a little bit more of a push in the flex, you might see Lamb a bit more, but we'll see.
I can see that. I think Lamb is gotten to be the number one guy in everyone's eyes now. I think he's starting to go ahead of Cooper. Especially in DFS eyes where, man, I feel like Cooper has been cheap for before he was out for 3 straight weeks, and he's failed or not really hit a ceiling those weeks, and people are down on him. So I could see people just get onto the CD wagon now with Cooper. Obviously,
one clarification though about Coop, he's like the guy the Green Bay running back Aaron Jones. He's got those 2 or 3 games a year where he just nukes the slate. So always pay attention to that in prime time with a guy like Coop. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. He's got the big playability still. It's not like I think I just think CD's really good.
I like CD better for sure.
They're both really good. I just think CD is starting to eclipse him, but he could easily have 2 touchdowns in this game. He's still got that type of. Yeah, For sure. So, all right, let's go to the running backs. And obviously Zeke was a big story with the knee issue. And it seems like he's going to be a full go, though. Tony Pollard got a good amount of work, even though he did run a kick return for a touchdown last game. But still, he got some good work last game. And what are we doing here? It seems like they're pretty expensive. Even Tony Pollard. Tony, what are you doing with the Dallas running backs?
That's what makes this slate so intriguing is these Dallas price tags are crazy. So Paul, if you get rid of the punts, like we already talked about, because I don't think Dallas has good punts. I really don't. The lowest guy is the kicker. Besides that, I can't play unless news hits before lock. It's only 4:00, so who knows what could hit. Maybe one of the receivers gets ruled out, or who knows what could happen. But as of now, I don't see anything below the kicker to play. So you're looking at all expensive guys for Dallas. And like Tony Pollard for 7,800, I'm a fan of Tony Pollard, but that is too expensive. That is freaking expensive for a guy. The only build I would play him, we just talked about Dalton Schultz. The only build I would play is with a Dak captain type build. The only build I'd play with Pollard is actually like just a running, slow paced build where you might even play Zeke with him and just go with the double running back like we did with Washington on Monday night and fade the pass catchers, go with the two run. You could still play Dak even on a build like that, like Tony Pollard or Zeke captain, Dak in the utility, no pass catchers, Taysom too the other way, and just hope it's a slow game where the running backs get all the touchdowns and Dak gets you like 13, 14 points, hits the winner in the utility. But just on the surface, I mean, 7,800 for Tony Pollard. I'll use the same example about the kickers. You can give me a kicker for half the price and the same projection or similar projection. I just have a hard time not taking the kicker over Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel this way, Whistles, where it's just like, how can I pay these price tags? And in the end, it's going to result in a ton of low ownership on – maybe it's not just the running backs. Maybe Schultz gets lower too by the end of the day. But for sure, like Tony Pollard, I think is going to come in real low. And he could get forced into work. I mean, Zeke is hurt. It's clear he's hurt no matter what they say. And in showdowns, I say this all the time. You don't bank on injuries, but I'm sorry, if you don't think about every type of scenario when you build teams out, you're doing it wrong. Yeah, if I play Tony Pollard on a team, I'm going to fade Zeke in that team. No way I'm going to play Zeke, because if I want Tony Pollard to hit his ceiling, at that price tag, I almost need him to overtake some of Zeke's workload, in my opinion, and that would be due to Zeke maybe having to bow out with an issue. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying if you don't think about these scenarios, I think it's wrong.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think it's going to be really hard to put. So I understand what Tony's saying about, Pollard and Zeke. If it's a super slow game, that could be a play, but his Pollard's ceiling is going to come potentially from Zeke being out. And I think you could, I actually don't have much of a different ownership on any of the Dallas player positions right now. I seem to be super even on all the receivers and the running backs because of the reasons that we're talking about. They're expensive. You can't put too many of them on the same team. But if the Cowboys are going to win, you need to have the one guy that is the guy. And yeah, I mean, I think, so Big T, you mentioned, you really want a quarterback with two receivers, but maybe in this setting, you're only looking for one and you forget about the running backs and you just say, yeah, maybe this is Cooper's 2 touchdown game. Right. And then that's a way that it could play out and that you're really successful. I think the other side of the ball is where you're going to get a ton of ownership at the running back, right? So Ingram should be the highest owned captain tonight, I think. Because, I mean, just look at his salary compared to every single other person
so cheap.
At Dallas, right? I mean, I think he's going to be the number one captain. So either ride that train and try to differentiate over in the util flex spots, whatever they call them, or shy away from him, right? I really think that's probably right.
I hate the Ingram captain too, is the funny part. Like I never play teams like that. It's one of the teams I just like, that chalky mid-range guy that I don't think's very good on top of it. I just play him in the utility more, but his price is the only one on the whole sheet. Like I'm looking at it He's literally like the only one that sticks out at all. I mean, the only other ones are like the really cheap guys that if they get a touchdown or something, obviously they're good. But no one else's price sticks out all that much. Maybe Taysom is a hair cheap to me, but no one else besides Ingram.
So then why don't we talk about the defensive plays tonight? You put 2 defenses on a roster or what?
I like the slow-paced game, and I think Taysom plays well. I think Dallas's offense is off the field, and that naturally means defenses to me. I think, like we already talked about the Dallas D, but I think the New Orleans D is solid too. As long as, you just got to pick a script. We always talk about it in Showdown. If New Orleans gets down like 2 touchdowns right away, it is going to be tough sledding for New Orleans. I mean, they can't come back from 2 touchdowns down. But if they get this game and they go on long drives, even if that means field goals and they just play a nice slow game, then both defenses are definitely in play for me. And the nice thing about them is just the prices. Like we said, we haven't talked about kickers besides just comments, but you look in the mid-range, you got Zerline and Mayer, both 42, 4K, both projected like 8 or 9 points, which is good projection. I think there could be a lot of field goals tonight. And then you got the defenses in the exact same price range for lower projections. So everyone's going to play the kickers over the Ds. I think the Ds are definitely in play tonight. If you think the game is low scoring, if you think it's good, if you think Dallas is going to score a bunch of points, I wouldn't put Ds in those type of builds. But if you think it's a slower build, I love it because of the prices, right? The price, there's no cheap guys tonight, and there's some of the cheaper plays on the board.
I think, too, if you like Taysom captain, you almost need Dak to have a worse game, which could lead to production for the defense in the slower game script where he's kind of on the sidelines for a long time. He gets in, maybe he makes a mistake, which leads to the defense. He's off the field longer. That can tend to lead to quarterbacks trying to force the ball when they get in there and do a little too much. So it makes sense to play the double Ds. I want to go back to Ingram real quick because Whistle said if he's going to be the most popular captain, just a couple things going against him. But when they get in the goal line, I mean, that's going to be Taysom Hill season. So that's just another guy that has to contend with Mark Ingram getting carries at the goal line where they're going to give Taysom Hill some carries at the goal line. I guarantee you, Tarek snaps, Taysom Hill just running right through the gut of the D or right on the B gap or whatever it is. It's going to happen. So that's one thing. Another thing that was big in Mark Ingram's production the few weeks before he got injured, he had 7 and 8 targets his last 2 games against Tennessee and Philly for 4 and 6 receptions for like 61 and 25 yards. That's a lot of production here. We're talking 10 points in the receiving game against Tennessee and, 8 points, 8.5 points in the receiving game against Philly. Taysom Hill is not going to check down like that. He didn't use Kamara like that. And if you're not using Kamara like that, why are you going to use Mark Ingram? I mean, Mark Ingram is not even close to what Kamara is as a weapon. And if he's going to tuck and run as opposed to check down, that's going to even more hurt Mark Ingram's numbers. And like I said, Dallas is going to play the run. They're going to pack that box. They're going to bring guys down, safeties down. They're going to try and stuff the run. I'm telling you right now, Mark Ingram and the captain builds, despise them. Even at the price, you could play him in the flex for the volume, but I hate the Mark Ingram captain builds. I think that they're really bad builds if he's going to be the most popular captain.
He's got to be one of them for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. You're making some good points, JC, but I do feel like he's going to be the number 1 captain tonight. Owned. I do.
Yeah, I think because of the.
What do you think about him, though? Right. Do you like him?
It's such a I mean, again, if it's a slow game and it's a run and pound game, sure, maybe he's the one that gets the flips at the goal line. Yes, it's not. I understand he's gonna have to split it, but running backs these days have to split action. It's just the way
he's cheap too, though. He is cheap.
Exactly, and he's not going to be splitting with any other running back, right? He's just with the quarterback, so that's fine. He's splitting with him, but like the same thing on the other side of the ball. If you look at the 2 running backs over there, so I don't hate it as much as you. So we'll see.
Yeah, just to be clear, I like him in the flex just because he will get the volume. I do not like him in the captain. if he's going to be the highest owned. So just wanted to be clear on that. As we go down real quick to kind of round this game out here, guys, just from a cheap option, we've talked about kickers. I'm on board with the kickers, the defenses. Tony, you said you're getting your value from the Saints. Besides kickers and defenses, is there like one punt value you really like?
I mean, you have to get your value from the New Orleans side, in my opinion. I just think the Dallas value is way, way more. Yeah, the New Orleans side is a guessing game for sure. And like Whistle said, sometimes you just need to put a couple entries in. If you're playing the Millie Maker tonight or something, put a couple entries in there, 3, 4, 5 entries instead of one. Cycle some guys through. But I mean, in the cheap range, you got a lot of guys that could do something for New Orleans just because we don't know. I mean, just the guys I like the most, Ty Montgomery. So we're assuming Ingram gets all the work. Ty Montgomery looked pretty good last week, and he's always been a pass catching running back. His price is a little higher too from out of that punt range where he might be the forgotten guy down there at 3K. I could see him having a decent little game. And then Juwan Johnson, we were on last week, 1,400 tight end play. I don't mind. Those are the two guys, but literally with the New Orleans side, I think you can cycle almost anybody that's going to play in the game for New Orleans in that cheap range. And if you got a strong take on one of these guys, if you have some lean or something, jam them in a bunch of stuff. And if you're right, and you do get the guy that gets 1 or 2 touchdowns, I can almost promise you're going to have a good night because everyone's going to be guessing. You're going to have to play one of these guys. You just have to, unless you just go kickers and Ds, which is fine too. But if you're not, I just think you have to take a stand on a few of these guys. For me, as of right now, it's Ty Montgomery and Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, I think Whistles. I think Humphreys would be my favorite at 26. I know there's a price difference between him and Juwan with 1,200, but where do you lean with the New Orleans Cheapies?
Yeah, so if you're going Humphreys, Johnson, and Montgomery, I would go Johnson, just purely the salary reason, right? I mean, so then you can get some Dallas guys in there. So I think that would be my play because I those 3 guys, I think I would be flipping a coin. Maybe other people know more.
It's a coin flip, even if we have a strong take. I mean, it's a coin flip in there.
I think the New Orleans side is a coin flip. Let's be honest. Like outside,
I mean, we can pretend Ingram, we have a strong take. Like we had the Deontay Harris take, but are we really sure that it's Deontay? I mean, we like him, but
I do like the Harris take though. I think that's the good play. I mean, yeah. Anyway, but yes, I understand. Yeah,
Deontay's just cheap too, like 4,600. I mean, that's pretty cheap on this slate. I mean, everybody else is way more than that. Yeah.
It's almost
that's why everything we're saying though is why Ingram is going to be very popular, like what Whistles is saying. Because if you pump him in there, I mean, so what? You put Ingram with both quarterbacks plus anybody like Coop even or something. You're still talking. You got a lot of salary to work with still. What 6,200? If you play Ingram and the captain, both quarterbacks and Coop, you got 6,200 for your last 2 spots. That is just going to be such a chalky build for sure. It actually lets you play all good guys, which people like in this format. They don't like to play the unknowns, and that's kind of where we can take advantage though. Play a Dak captain with 2 pass catchers like we talked about and go there with 1 punt. If your punt gets double digits or the defense, like Whistle says, gets a pick 6, all of a sudden you're cooking.
I really like the put Dallas defense with Hill tonight. I think I don't know how often I'll do it, but it'll be there for sure for me. And I think whether you're doing them both in the flex spot or one in the, whatever you want to do, I think that's a power play, I think, tonight.
Yeah, I love that. Let's move to the next question, which is a big question with a lot of our subs. And Tony, every showdown we get this question. Is it a 4-2 build? Is it a 3-3 build? 5-1? And Whistles, I want to get your take on this because is there a certain build for Showdown you've just noticed is maybe a little less popular than the rest? Is there a certain build that you tend to lean to on most Showdowns? Is it the 3-3, the 4-2? How do you go about that?
It's a good question. And no, there's no build. I will tell you, like, for example, I hit a million baseball, okay? And I read some of the comments on Twitter, and they're like, oh, Whistles and one other guy are the only people that went 4-4 builds. fine, right? I didn't, no, there is no design. It's a look at the slate, see what fits, and try to play out the game. I mean, I think, I'm an analytics guy, right? But I'm never picking a lineup that isn't aligned with some type of game outcome that I can imagine for that game. And then the analytics kind of fills it in from there. So I think you guys are absolutely correct. Look at the game outcome that you think is going to happen and then build from there. And if you can imagine that Taysom Hill is going to do basically everything for New Orleans, for the Saints, then fine. Run with him and then fill him with as many Dallas. There's nothing wrong with that. If you think it's going to be more of a running and then you're going to put that's okay too. But think about what's going to happen in the game, then try to build around that. And I have no preset defined lineup builds for showdowns. It's a matter of just fitting it to the game and the slate.
So it's more a slate by slate answer to the question than it is like, no, it's a 4-2 build is the best builds always. Because that's how I think of it too. I think it's slate to slate. I don't think it's like, oh, this build is always the best build. I think for sure that there are certain builds that are lower owned. Like Tony, you found, I know there's someone out there who posts like the ownership of certain builds, and the 5-1s have been lower owned, right? Isn't that true?
I mean, the 5-1's always going to be your cleanest path to the top, but it's also the least likely to hit too. I mean, you need a blowout. You need not much to happen from one side. So there's a reason it's like that. I just naturally, I think the 3-3s are the worst tournament builds, but again, it's slate by slate, like you guys are saying. I'm not saying it's ever just locked in, but it's just the common ground of what people get to. And it could be the best team though. The thing is with the percentages, 3-3 is most likely to win just because of the way the projections line up. So of course it's the most ownership, but it's also the most likely, and it goes down. Naturally, I think the 4-2 underdog is usually the best, but a slate like tonight, showing how it's slate dependent, I think a 5-1 Cowboys is going to be extremely low owned just because of the prices. And it could happen if they get out front 14-0 and New Orleans has got to throw the ball. It could easily happen where it's a whitewash Dallas win. And I like New Orleans tonight, but that just shows you the flip side of it. If you went 5-1 Dallas, even with Taysom, I think that is a very strong build.
Yeah. And do you think that, so I know you like Taysom, would you build any Taysom captain builds where they are 5-1 builds, but Taysom and the captain? Because you're a
with 5 New Orleans.
Well, I'm thinking
I wouldn't build 5 New Orleans in any team tonight. Like Dallas just has too many good guys.
Dallas, but with Taysom and
I could build 5 Dallas with Taysom 100% because I could see Taysom being the whole offense for sure. The one builds I won't do tonight are 5-1 New Orleans. Like Dallas has too many guys that I just struggle to see that happening where at least two of them could get all the work, but I don't think it could be one because you need a total blowout to get the one build, and I don't see it. But 4-2s are definitely in play too, where you got Dak plus one of the receivers and they somehow get it all, or the flip side, the running backs, maybe Dak and Zeke, Dak and Pollard and Zeke. So I could see the 2s for sure, but the 1s not as much.
All right. Yeah. I'm just thinking like it makes sense. Like Taysom does everything. He's in the captain.
Taysom might be the best build, the 5-1. You get all those Dallas dudes. But again, then how do you make the salary work? Because there's just not as many. Maybe it's Dallas D. Like the build whistle is saying. Taysom, Dallas D, 4 other dudes.
Yeah. What do you think, Whistles?
Yeah, I can imagine a 5. Again, I don't think you do 5 Saints.
No.
I just don't know what that will look like tonight. I mean, who knows? But in what game would that be the right play? I can't imagine.
Dallas would have to just be awful. And it would have to be like a 13-10, 13-3 game where there's just not many points.
Yeah. But I think, if you put the defense there, throw the kicker in there, try to get 3 guys in there, maybe you could build a Dallas 5 with Taysom.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, you could figure it out, but it'd have to be like the defensive kicker, like you said. I don't think you want to get into the cheap Dallas guys, and that's where you'll get into trouble if you get into those really cheap Dallas guys. Because I just, like you guys said, I don't see a ton there from that.
I'm getting those dudes out. I don't even want them hitting my builds. Like I'm getting those dudes out of there.
All right, so let's wrap the show up. Let's give out favorite tournament captain play if you guys want to throw out something. Tony, I know you're on the big Taysom Hill. I know you're going to be heavy on Taysom. Is he your favorite captain play, or is he going to be lower owned in the captain? What do you think?
No, he'll be my highest owned captain tonight for sure. I'll mix and match a ton of stuff though. The thing I like about Taysom captain is you can go a ton of different directions with him, like so many different directions. You can play Ingram with him, no one else. A receiver with him, no one else. Two receivers with him, nothing else. The defense from Dallas and some other Dallas. There's so many directions to go with him. But my favorite low-owned captain is going to be our boy Deontay Harris. He's 4,600, 400 cheaper than Ingram. So you kind of get a natural pivot off that chalky Ingram. You play Taysom with him, and then you can play 3 or 4 Cowboys too. That is my favorite tournament type build tonight in a large field too. So I like that.
Love it. Natural pivot, like you said, off the chalk Ingram.
I love that they're like the same price. Like I love that.
Me too. Whistles, what do you think here? What's your favorite captain build? I know you've talked a lot
He's
about
the best with these sneaky guys too. Don't let him get off without giving us one sneaky guy. I know he's got one.
On us. We need a sneaky Whistles guy.
Schultz, put him in.
So you like Schultz because of the price. I like that though, because he is expensive.
So you like him in the captain. That's your favorite sneaky captain build?
I think so.
I like that.
Right. Yeah.
This is my favorite part of Showdown, though. Like, if you think a guy's overpriced, I always end up liking them more just because it's hard to get those builds. It's just funny how Showdown works like that, which is why
ownership is an easier thing to get a handle on just by looking at the slate, I think, right? And I think that's a low owned. I also will say that the Dak captain is hard to build tonight, but it will be under owned, I promise you. So, if you Big T, you say you love quarterbacks in the captain spot. I think you will see a little bit of an edge if Dak has a 30-point game. And, I don't know, maybe.
All right. So I've come away with 2 things. Deontay Harris and Dak captain builds are definitely giving me 2 things I'm going to go in on.
The funny thing is Deontay Harris plays really well at a Dak captain build too. Is the funny thing. So
yep. Either way, it works out good for us, Tony, with our guys. So I will say that. Boys, anything else you wanted to hit on? Tony, anything else before we get out of here?
No, it was fun having Whistles on. I love getting that analytics approach to the show. He's one of the best. Love what he does. And it was fun hanging out with you guys for sure.
Yeah, loved it too. This was a lot of fun. Have fun with Showdown. What's good about a Showdown is you could throw in something kind of crazy if you can imagine it happening. And that's, I've seen some really crazy lineups that somehow my model came up with that ended up doing amazingly well. So don't be scared. Whatever we're saying, go the opposite way if you want, right? It's perfect. Yeah. Like you can really go exotic with these Showdown lineups. And I think people are getting better at it. So going more exotic is probably actually the right play.
Isn't there anything better, Whistles, too, than when you ship with just some random team that looks terrible? And then everyone's like, how'd Whistles ship with that team? Oh, how did he do that? Like, that's just so satisfying.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you one thing, Big T. I went to a Knicks game recently, and the guy I went to, he used to play a lot of DFS, and he hasn't played recently, so he had no idea who I was. He was a buddy of a buddy, but he absolutely knew who you were and talked about giblets. So, yes, that was very cool.
The giblets. I love that.
It was very cool.
Whistle's got to trademark the woo-woo, and Tony's got to trademark the giblets. That's what we got to do.
You got to have the trademarks. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, and then we
need one more woo. Whistles has got to bring us out on the woo too. We gotta get a good one in.
All right, have a good time tonight. Woo!
We'll see you guys later. Good luck in your showdowns tonight. For me, JSU, Whistles, and Big T. We're out.